Hello everybody and welcome back to the ASUS YouTube channel. This is JJ once again, and we're bringing you a brand new overview on a new graphics card. We're going to actually be covering a 7970 GHz edition card, but as it's an ASUS series card, of course it's going to be standing apart from the rest of the cards that are on the market. Specifically, it's actually going to be a ROG series graphics card. With that, it's actually going to be a Matrix series card. So this is, as always, going to be a very special card in regards to the features, functions, and the overall aesthetic that it brings to the market. As you can see right here, we've got the card on actually a Rampage 4 Extreme, just looking awesome. And in this video, we're actually going to be going over a lot of the functions, the features, the design integration, and all the points that really make this card an awesome gigahertz edition card, as well as actually take things to a whole nother level for you guys that are out there that are interested in tweaking and tuning your graphics card. So with that, let's actually go ahead and take a look at the accessories that come included with the 7970 Matrix. Okay guys, here you can see we've got the accessories laid out for the 7970 Matrix series graphics card. So this is everything that comes included inside of it. So let's go ahead and break these down quickly. First off the bat, we've got right here our PCI Express power adapter. So this is essentially letting you take from 8-pin power to 6-pin power inputs. So it's pretty straightforward. From there, we've got, of course, a crossfire ribbon cable. So that's go ahead and included there. And from here, a DVI to VGA adapter. Now moving on from there, we've got a couple of other items such as the speed setup guide, gives you some information regarding how to actually get this card installed into your system, as well as how to install the software and whatnot. Here we've got the actual graphics card utility. So this includes the actual drivers as well as actually our GPU tweak graphics card utility. As always though, we recommend getting the latest version of the driver directly from AMD's website. And as far as for the GPU tweak utility, you can head over to support.asus.com, type in GPU tweak, and it will have the latest version of the software available. That is, though, a very important piece of software in terms of controlling and customizing the card relative to the clock speeds, voltages, fan speeds, or any of the other exclusive options that we're going to be talking about in this video regarding the graphics card. So definitely want to take advantage of the GPU tweak utility. From here, we have a specialized heatsink assembly. This is only really for the guys that are going to be pushing this guy under extreme type of conditions, or possibly maybe under water cooling, but predominantly this is going to be focused at extreme overclockers where when they're actually utilizing, let's say, like an LN2 pot and they've removed the actual heatsink and fan assembly, they may actually require an additional heatsink to be able to cover the actual MOSFETs and other portions of the actual card. So this is only to be used in configurations where extreme cooling is utilized, or where the primary heatsink and fan assembly has been removed from the rest of the PCB board. With that, of course, we have right here some additional mounting screws for that, so pretty straightforward. And here we've got something very cool. We introduced previously in our 7970 DirectCU2 graphics card the actual technology that we coined as Vga Hotwire. So this is a really cool technology that lets you directly access the graphics card by connecting it directly to the motherboard and having advanced voltage control. So that's actually what these cables are. This series of graphics card, compared to the DC2, doesn't require any soldering. There's actually going to be 3 connection points on the graphics card that we can connect these cables to, and we'll show that later with these other 3 points connecting directly to the motherboard. So that rounds out the accessories that come with the 7970 series Matrix card. Here we've got the box for the 7970 Matrix series graphics card. This box does apply to both the platinum and the non-platinum versions of the card. The difference between the two is, of course, the overclock frequencies that they ship at, one being at 1050 and the other one being at 1100. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, everything else that comes included with the box, as well as the actual box itself, is going to be the same, minus the platinum being denoted there. Now you can see right here there's a big call out for a Diablo 3 mousepad. We didn't cover that in the actual accessories because you just wanted to show it to you a little bit more closely here, but you can actually take a look at it right there. It's an awesome, nice little mouse pad that you've got there, especially if you guys are into dungeon crawlers, you're into Diablo, and who isn't. Pretty cool little add-on that also comes included with the graphics card. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and actually pop this open and take a look at some of the key points that are actually listed here on the box. So you can see right here actually on the inside, it's actually got a clear opening that would allow you to see the graphics card, but right now we don't actually have it in there because we've taken it out already and we've mounted it to the board, so just keep that in mind. Okay. Here we can see that we've got actually a ton of different features noted here on the actual box and inside on the inner lip in the packaging, and we've got really a huge amount of features and functions. With the Matrix series cards, really our goal is to put the most feature-rich, the most tweakable, the most performance-oriented graphics card that's on the market underneath this Matrix series. And you can see that we're calling that out with the tweak-it-oriented technologies, which are from everything from a safe mode button that allows you to have access to a quick BIOS profile that's stored for safety overclocking purposes, hardware level voltage adjustment, a turbo fan button for maximum airflow. You've got the GPU Tweak It, which is going to work in concert with a lot of the hardware designs that we're going to be going into to give you unprecedented level of control of voltages, frequencies, and even PCB and PWM level controls for you guys out there that are interested in overclocking. A massive 20-stage SAP power delivery solution, really bringing you the best quality power implementation that's on the market in terms of a graphics card. And then, of course, the awesome high-performance direct CU2 heat pipe and fan assembly, allowing us to have really the highest level of cooling performance for an airflow, and overall really bringing this card to the next level of performance when you talk about overclockability potential, but while still keeping a very quiet card, especially under gaming load. So with that, that covers some of the key technologies. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look at the card itself. Now that we've gone ahead and covered the accessories as well as the box, we've actually got the graphics card here itself. So this is our ASUS ROG 7970 Matrix series graphics card. Now we're doing the overview here specifically on the Platinum Edition series. So this is the flagship model, the fastest one in terms of the actual clock speeds. So this one's actually coming in at a clock speed of 1050. With the boost set to actually 1.1 gigahertz and the memory clock set to 6.6 gigahertz, and that's GDDR5, and that's 3 gigabytes of it. So an outright beast of a card, and really impressive in terms of its overall performance characteristics. Now keep in mind that the non-platinum version is just slightly reduced in terms of the actual core clock speed, but the actual DDR frequency is essentially the same. And otherwise, everything else that we're going to be discussing in regards to the feature set, the performance, acoustic considerations, and the overall kind of design are all going to be identical between the two. It's just going to be the clock speeds. So with that, let's start to take a look here at this card and see what actually makes the card very unique as compared to the previous generation 7970 Direct CU2, as well as your standard reference 7970 card. Okay, so first on the bat, you can definitely see that we've got an awesome stylized aesthetic in terms of the actual shroud that's on the card. It's in the classic black and red that you normally have on our RG series products, so that of course gives it its nice aggressive clean profile. And of course you still see that we maintain the DC2 design in terms of it being a direct contact copper design, and two, denoting that we have two large 10-centimeter fans. And these are optimally placed in terms of their positioning as well as the airflow that they've been tuned for to be able to go ahead and give us a very high level of cooling performance. To give you an idea in terms of this card, under our internal testing, we were seeing that even at this overclocked shipped frequency, the card was averaging about 67C at full gaming load. So very, very impressive in terms of the thermal performance that this is able to offer, even in comparison to other competitors in the market space. There are certain M-series brands out there that right now have a quote-unquote comparable series flagship card, but the actual gaming performance load in terms of the temperature is significantly higher, closer to about your mid-80s in terms of the thermal performance. So quite a big delta that you're going to have. And the other big benefit is that this thermal design assembly is also going to help to keep the card at the highest level of peak operation in terms of core clock speed, especially with the gigahertz edition cards where you have the GPU boost technology. So that is something to kind of keep in mind there. Now with that, we're going to go ahead and start to rotate this card around, take a look at some of the other key aspects that define the input and display output connectivity. We've gone ahead and moved over to the display output connectivity, and we can see that we have a little bit different configuration. Normally on the reference series cards, you're actually going to have mini DP connections. The disadvantage you have there is that it actually can require some expensive adapters to be able to actually output correctly to higher resolution panels. So us taking advantage of the actual triple slot form factor design that not only allows us to have a very high mass and high density and overall quite powerful thermal solution to be able to give you really quiet and cool performance for the card, it also allows us to actually have great real estate for this actual display output. So you can see that we have two DVI connections, and one being a single link and the other one being a dual link, so that of course supports 2560 resolutions. But in addition to that, you actually have four native DisplayPort connections, all full size. So that's great to be able to link up to the latest generation of high resolution panels like our new PBA panels, which are 2560 by 1440. So with that, of course, this card fully supports the ability to drive up to 4K resolutions through that, as well as if you were actually attaching it to a corresponding high resolution 4K monitor or projector if you have those available to you. And of course, with 6 digital outputs on here, that also maintains the ability to support 6-way Eyefinity configurations, as well as your classic standard 3-panel Eyefinity configurations. So overall, a huge amount of flexibility that you have in the actual configurations available to you. One word of note is that there is actually a secondary BIOS switch on the card, which does enable different display output configurations depending on what you're going to be linking up with. So keep that in mind, that the actual switch here on the card may need to be adjusted in different configurations for your display output config. Okay, here we are at the back of the card. Got a lot to cover here. First and foremost, you have your crossfire connections here at the top of the card. And of course, directly across the entire back plane of the PCB, you can see that we actually have this nice metal plate that also serves for one, just being awesome looking in terms of the aesthetic, but it also allows to actually add additional rigidity and stability to the entire frame to go ahead and give us actually a better placement when inside of an actual chassis. Now, in terms of actually some unique characteristics on the design side, you can see that if we actually go ahead and trace out to this little portion here, we've got a lot of actually circuitry, with one of these being actually an iROG chip. The iROG chip on here actually works to give us some additional functionality that we're going to be talking about when it comes to the Vga Hotwire technologies, as well as some of the other exclusive tuning technologies that we have available to you in GPU Tweak. You know, with the Matrix series cards, we always focus at giving you a high degree of customization about how you tune and are able to work with the card, and definitely this card is no different in this respect. Here you can see a couple of the high performance pause caps in terms of specialized capacitor choices, and then moving over here, you can see some very interesting portions. We have 3 connection leads, actually 1, 2, and then a third one down here. These are actually for the Vga Hotwire technology. Now, if you remember in our accessories, we talked about 3 cables that came included. This is actually where these 3 cables would connect to, and they give you direct access to actually increasing the voltage for the GPU core, the memory core, and the PLL, so the board level voltage. And what that allows you to do is extend it to higher overclocking margins for you guys that are going to possibly be running the card at significantly higher clock speeds, or in, of course, environments where you're using secondary forms of cooling, or even replacing the thermal assembly and maybe going with water cooling solutions, or even extreme forms of cooling, and allowing you to be able to have additional voltage to drive this card to its highest level of overclockability. So that's a really awesome technology that's exclusive to this graphics card, and is simpler than the previous 7970 DirectCU2 graphics card, where you had the same technology available to you, but you had to solder the actual connection points directly to the card, and then from there connect the cable to the motherboard. Now, right underneath here in terms of the lip, there's actually 2 LEDs that will light up green when you actually make a correct active power connection in terms of your PCI Express power, and when there's no active power connection but the card is installed into this to the board, they will actually light up kind of like a red color. So that's a nice just little visual indicator to know that you're making all your correct connections and things are working okay. As we move down here, we've got our actual probit technology, and this allows you to make quick and accurate voltage measurements so that as you're overclocking the card, maybe you want to monitor droop aspect ratios, things along those lines, you can go ahead and have access to that information with a digital multimeter and be able to take advantage of that. Now, we do have extensive PWM monitoring, so that of course you can have full real-time readings directly within our GPU Tweak utility. And even when you are considering things like voltage droop, we do have now specialized technologies that have been built into the card that allow you to have full control over load line calibration. This is an outright first for a graphics card, which normally you'd be able to adjust for V-droop or voltage drop when overclocking and applying higher levels of voltage on a motherboard. But on a graphics card, this has never been able to be done before, and you do have this available to you. So for users that really kind of want to have that next level of control and also monitoring aspect, they can use the combination of both. A load line calibration in GPU Tweak that's given to you from a hardware level, as well as being able to monitor that information with your multimeter here at those probit points. And lastly, of course, we still do want to make note of your standard interconnect. So this is a PCIe Gen 3 interconnect, physical by 16 slots, so pretty straightforward there. And like always, if you want access to the card for whatever purposes, it is very simple in terms of just removing the screws that are fixed around here and these 4 screws that remove the central heatsink and fan assembly. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the other side of the card. So you can see right here we've got dual 8-pin PCI Express power connections. That is, of course, a little bit different in terms of the reference series design, and that's just to go ahead and allow us maximum power delivery to the GPU to ensure the best overclockability and the overall best power delivery to the card, and the 20-stage digital power solution that we have here in terms of our Digi Plus VRM, as well as our 20 SAP power phase design. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look over some of the exclusive technologies at tweaking this card. First up here, in terms of some tweaking aspects that we have, we've got this little button right here, so that when you depress this button, this will actually fully initiate 100% RPM duty mode on the actual two fans. So it allows, goes ahead and gives you the maximum cooling performance, so that when you're overclocking the card and you're testing out ranges and you don't want to ensure that your cooling performance is limited by the actual fan cycle, you can go ahead and depress that. And that's a hardware fixed button, so that's independent of any type of software mechanism at all. Right below that, there's actually a stage of LEDs that will dynamically change to different colors depending on the voltage that you apply to the card. Now, when we define what's called the V-BIOS for the card, this has a certain level of voltage adjustment that's available to it. Now, in addition to that voltage, we can also drive higher levels of voltage directly on the card by utilizing these buttons right here. So if we press the plus button, that would actually increase a certain number of millivolts in addition to the base vid voltage that we're applying. So this is for you guys out there that are really looking to drive the card to the highest level of clock speeds and need more voltage to be able to achieve those frequencies. Now, I will note to you that within the voltage ranges that we do offer within the card and the customization aspects that we have inside GPU Tweak, we have been able to actually tune some of our samples to 1.3 gigahertz and in excess of 7 gigahertz on the memory. So these voltage options are really only for you guys that are looking to really push it to even higher levels of performance. Now, keep in mind the original 7970 was limited to about clock speeds in the lower vicinity of a little bit over 900 megahertz. So the fact that we've been able to take these cards and push them over 1.3 gigahertz is already quite high. Now, right underneath that, we've got another button that's referred to as our safe mode button. One of the awesome features of this graphics card is that once you find kind of the sweet spot for an overclock setting that works really great on your card, and you have no issues in regards to stability, and you've gone ahead and seen all the increases in frame rate, you can go ahead and store this actual V-BIOS to the card directly, so that even regardless of any software, you now consistently and always have the card boot up at this new overclock frequency. So take, for instance, we said this card ships at 1.1 gigahertz for the GPU core, and then from there 6.6 on the memory. Let's say we overclock it to 1.3 and 7 gigahertz. We can go ahead and permanently store that with GPU Tweak. We can burn that in as an option. But in the event that we ever have any issues during our overclocking testing or later on, and we always want to just revert back to the settings that we validated and have checked the card to run at no issues, you can always press this safe mode button, and this will essentially take you back. It's almost like a clear CMOS that you would have on a motherboard. So a great fail-safe option at being able to ensure that you always have a recourse to go back to a safe operating setting. We've gone ahead and disassembled it for you, and here we have it broken apart. So we're actually going to be first focusing on the DirectCU2 Heatsink and Fan Assembly, but just for your guys' reference, it's actually a very simple process to disassemble. There's just literally 4 screws that you have to remove from the actual back side of the board. Which are normally screwed in place, and that's it, and this thing essentially will pull out. The actual back plate, which I've gone ahead and also unscrewed, does require individual screws for it to be removed from the back of the PCB board, but actually just be able to get access to the GPU should you want to be able to reapply any type of thermal compound or anything like that, and make sure that the pressure contact is good, anything like that, it's just going to require those 4 screws. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and focus in on the the Matrix's Heatsink and Fan Assembly. So first up, we actually, of course, have the fans, which we loosely covered when we were first taking a look at the card. This is, of course, a dual fan design that's actually 10 centimeter, that what we have here. And as you can actually see, we have some pretty cool information here up on the monitor. It's showing you actually some air pressure and airflow speed data, as well as actually some thermographic images, which actually allow you to see what the type of performance characteristics is you have with this type of dual fan solution, as opposed to other dual fan solutions that are even similar in terms of their size. And you can see that the key area that we're looking in comparison to our solution is that overall we're able to keep a more nominal lower temperature point across the actual PCB real estate, where you actually have the 2 fans positioned over, and when that's really the kind of key driver. Now, the cool thing that we have with the Matrix series cards is that you can independently adjust the actual RPM rates for each one of these fans. So if you want to go ahead and have this one, which is directly over the actual GPU Heatsink and Fan Assembly, then you could go ahead and have this one set to maybe 75% and this one set to 50%. And all these are kind of consideration points vary depending on your airflow configuration that you have set up within your chassis environment, but it's great that you just have the overall customization and the ability to be able to tweak and tune and define these parameters of operation within GPU Tweak. So a very cool feature in it itself in terms of what you can do there at independent fan adjustment rotation, as well as the performance characteristics that you can see here. And as we noted earlier, performance in terms of thermals is outstanding. You know, we were averaging between about 67C to even about 71-72C when we were heavily overclocked. That was generally between about 1250 to about 1325 in terms of the core clock speed. So even at those core clock speeds elevated significantly up from the reference gigahertz edition clock speeds, this thermal assembly solution and the overall airflow provided by this dual fan design was exemplary. And even from an acoustic standpoint, the card was lightly audible, but overall maintained a quiet footprint. So you know, overall when gaming, you weren't going to be affected by this. Now, lastly, we do want to touch on that you can't see it clearly here, but the internal hub assemblies do feature our actual dust-proof fan technology, which means that they're double sealed, so that any type of dust, debris, dander that could go ahead and get inside the actual hub assembly, which could stop the fan from rotating, that can occur because of our actual dust-proof fan design. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the inside. So here you can see that we have the contact plate, pure copper with the high-performance heat pipes that are going into each one of the actual high fin mass thermal assemblies right here. So each one of these is, of course, dissipating heat that's coming out and being received from this block right here. And of course, those are being cooled by the two fans that we saw on the other side. So overall, a very large amount of surface area, which is key at being able to dissipate that heat evenly, effectively, and being able to go ahead and also deal with those higher TDP markers as we start to overclock this card and as we start to drive higher voltages into this card. So really an outstanding thermal solution that we have here in terms of our actual copper and dual fin assembly design. So you can see right here, it actually spells out the word matrix, because of course this is a 7970 matrix series graphics card. If we take a look here at the monitor, we've got a pretty awesome feature that we have built into this card, and that is that it actually has a load indicator. So what it does is it monitors the actual GPU utilization. So depending on the GPU utilization, the actual LED load indicator will actually go up in correlation to that. So you can see that for essentially light loading and idle loading, you're down here taking a look at kind of this green to this kind of light blue. And then as we start to go into a little bit heavier loading, we go into this kind of darker blue, and then this kind of purple to then extreme loading, which would be generally 100% in red. And actually in most situations, you'll find that most games don't actually go into red because you don't usually exceed about 65 to about 70% game loading. So in most situations, you're going to kind of be floating back and forth between this blue to kind of this purple color, but it's a nice kind of visual cue to let you know what the performance factors are in relation to your card and how much of the GPU is being utilized. So pretty cool little feature that also serves an aesthetic function. So that kind of rounds out a lot of what we're talking about here in terms of the heatsink and the fan assembly, as well as the overall aesthetics that we have in relation to the card. So we're going to move over to the actual PCB board and take a look at the actual power delivery implementation and a couple of the other exclusive points on the PCB board. First and foremost, you're going to notice the huge, massive overall PCB Nvrm heatsink plate that adds a huge amount of rigidity to the board, as well as it goes ahead and helps us to actually have additional cooling for the entire board. Now this is important because we actually have an entirely different power topology design on this actual card. In relation to the power topology on the card, what we mean by that is that the actual power planes, so the actual PCB board and the trace layout that provides power delivery is overall significantly larger than the actual PCB power planes that we would have on a normal 7970 reference card. This allows us to go ahead and have a higher level of power delivery and a cooler level of operation because we have a larger area that we're actually having that current and that power travel over. So this is something that we'll go ahead and reference here in a slide in a little bit that you can go ahead and see. But it's something that it is actually part of this entire PCB real estate, because that is always one of the unique characteristics on ASUS non-reference series cards is that everything is non-reference, whether it be the actual PCB design itself, as well as the power componentry, and of course the heatsink and the fan assembly. Now moving over from there, you can see that we've got these really nice kind of darker capacitors. In comparison to our normal super alloy capacitors that we have on DC2 cards, these are very, very high performance capacitors, even higher grade than our standard super alloy power caps. These are the same, what we refer to as Nichicon GT Black Series capacitors that we use on our flagship ROG motherboards. So they offer the highest level of temperature performance and lifespan that's available on the market. So they really fit well in terms of a high-end card like this, where you're going to have higher temperatures due to, of course, overclocking configurations, or where you might be partaking in using maybe one or two of these in a type of crossfire configuration, and you're going to have a higher internal ambient temperature. So overall, it's just kind of giving you confidence in that the power componentry that we have on here is really the best of the best, giving you the overall best lifespan, overall reliability, and the performance to boot with that. Now, in addition to that, of course, we're maintaining our SAP power implementations, such as our super alloy MOSFETs, and then, of course, our super alloy chokes. With these chokes, of course, they offer a higher level of performance in terms of the actual current output that they support, the amperage, in comparison to the reference series chokes. And they also, because of their fully sealed design and the alloy mix that they have there, as opposed to being a hollow inductor at the inside, it helps to minimize any type of what's referred to as coil whine or a choke whine that sometimes can occur. You can see here that we've got a huge amount of these SAP chokes on this card, 20-phase power in total, so really kind of bringing it to a whole nother level of performance, even compared against our standard 7970 DC2 design, which is only a 12-phase super alloy power. Now, if we flip it over here, we take a look at the little bottom, we still, of course, maintain the Digi Plus VRM, so that's the PWM controller, which is giving us a whole nother level of control over this card. And when I mean a whole nother level of control, it's really unprecedented. When you take a look at the actual GPU tweak software, we're going to give you the ability to adjust load line calibration for the card. We're going to be able to adjust the core voltage, the memory voltage, as well as the actual VRM switching frequency itself. So very similar to the same level of controls that we're giving you on a motherboard, we're giving you those same level of overclock controls available here, really allowing you to kind of tweak and tune the card to be able to make sure that those settings aren't a limiting option and be able to reach the highest frequencies. So when you combine that, of course, together with even the more extensive functions like the Vga Hotwire technology, which allows you to make direct voltage level controls in addition to the voltage that we're offering for the board by connecting it to a Rampage 4 Extreme or Maximus 5 Extreme, that's awesome. And of course, for users that might not have the ability to use a Rampage 4 Extreme or Maximus 5 Extreme, we're still giving you hardware level voltage controls that you have available to you here. So altogether, when you take in consideration the SAP power delivery components, so the capacitors, the chokes, the MOSFETs, the newer edition of the Nichicon GT caps in comparison to the standard caps, and then of course the digital power design, and then the power plane design on the PCB, you pretty much have the best of the best when it comes to the power delivery design and the PCB design that you have for a graphics card. So here we're wrapping things up. Pretty much, you know, we've gone from all the ins and outs of this graphics card, covering the performance metrics of it, the design aspects of it, and overall how that really comes to provide you pretty much the best 7970 graphics card you can get on the market. Our goal when we developed the Matrix series was pretty much to give you the most customizable, overclockable, and performance-oriented card that you could get, and definitely I think you guys have seen that through the course of this video. When you talk about the thermal performance, it's outstanding. Once again, the cards generally clocking in at about 67 to about 70 C, maybe a little bit more than that when you're heavily overclocking. So we're talking about 1250 to 1325. But even at the stock overclocks, we're looking only at about 67 to 68 C. When we talk about kind of continuing the tradition of our high performance cards at being also not only cool but quiet, this card definitely meets that marker as well, even once again when overclocked. And when we talk about overclocking in general, as you've seen, everything that we've done to this card, not only from the hardware level adjustments, but also the hardware and software combination adjustments that you have available to you in GPU tweak, and being able to make such extensive changes to things like load line calibration, VRM switching frequency, voltages for both the memory and the GPU, and even a lot more, and even be able to store those actually overclocks directly into the card, but still have fail-safe backups via that safe mode button, pretty much take overclocking on the 7970 to a whole nother level. So altogether, for you guys that are out there looking for the highest level of performance on the AMD side of the fence, this Matrix series card is definitely going to give it to you. So you guys that want to be able to match this up with a 2560 panel like our PB series, looking to drive 2560 by 1440 resolutions, high level AA, and really taking all those image quality settings to the max and being able to get an outstanding gaming experience, this is the card that's going to be for you. So as always, if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, general feedback, anything you'd like to see, make sure to send those over to us here on the page. You can drop them in the comment section. I take take a lot of time to go ahead and answer that. Or you can feel free to go ahead and hit us up at Facebook or Twitter. And as always, if you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure and subscribe so we can keep coming and bringing you guys awesome content. So thank you.